Hello everyone, before I go into the video, I would like to thank all of you for supporting my channel and commenting on all my videos. By the time of making this video, we reached 12,000 subscribers. And as I wanted to do a Q&A after reaching that sub count, I might skip that Q&A till we reach about 1500. As my last video didn't have a lot of comments, so it would be a waste to spend a full video on just a couple of questions. I also have a Discord channel which I will put down in the description below in case you're interested. And so, let's move on and continue on with the video. Woodfall Temple, an incredible natural-based temple, yes I said natural, that is the first one you'll encounter in the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. The temple is found deep within the southern swamp of the Woodfall area, which is a large murky bog situated in a large crater filled with water. As a creepy curse has been placed upon the temple, everything surrounding the area has become poisonous. While all the creatures got affected by this poison, others, like a small foolish monkey, was not. He went on to investigate and found out that it was the temple that was the source of all the trouble within the swamp. He went to the Deku Palace, the only place he believed that was capable of doing something about it, to tell the princess what was going on. He convinced her that it was the temple, and so they both went to the temple to check it out. However, when they both entered the temple, a strange but mighty Aztec jungle warrior named Odolwa guarded the temple, found the princess, and kidnapped her. While this happened, the foolish monkey went back to the palace to warn the Deku King for what happened. But the king didn't believe it, and instead of going on the rescue to save the princess, the monkey was captured, imprisoned, and was about to be sacrificed as punishment for it. Now that I explained the backstory a little bit, I would like to start with the Deku first. The Deku Scrubs are a race of wooden creatures with leaves or flowers as hair. They can shoot Deku nuts and have a strange weakness for water. These creatures are heavily inspired, well in Majora's Mask they are, by Native American culture. They dance around the fire with amazing music created by flutes and drums. They seem to worship nature as everything in their area is all plant and or flower based and have their own style in terms of colors. Looking at the architectural style of the Deku Palace, the colors stand out the most, which is incredibly important in Native American culture. As Link found the foolish monkey and tried to save him from his imprisonment, the monkey explained what happened, and after that, the monkey learned him the song called the Sonata of Awakening, which allows to wake up someone that has fallen into a deep sleep. While learning this, the Deku King heard them both playing the song, which in turn sped up the sacrificial punishment that the monkey was about to receive. As Link continued to travel through the swamp, he eventually finds a symbol on a wooden platform with a Deku mark on it. By playing the Sonata of Awakening on top of the mark, a large pyramidal shaped structure rises up from the middle of the crater, revealing and wakening up the hidden Woodfall Temple. The Deku marks show that once upon a time, the Deku used to worship this temple for unknown reasons. Well, unless we look further into it. The temple itself looks to be inspired by Mayan and Aztec culture, as you can see here, and maybe this temple was worshipped by the Deku to keep Odolwa, the Aztec warrior, out of the swamp. In the Majora's Mask manga created by Akira Himekawa, we see the different side of Odolwa. As the manga isn't canon, it is still relevant to the inspiration and structure of the temple. In the manga it is showed that Odolwa was the god of Woodfall, which could explain the origin of the temple and why the Deku worshipped him, not because they liked him, but because of his ferociousness. By keeping their god at bay and by sacrificing things for him, Odolwa is satisfied and therefore stayed within his temple. However, in the manga, Odolwa appeared in the Deku Palace and ordered a tribute in order to be satisfied. As that did not happen, Odolwa was mad and kidnapped the princess as a demanded tribute while trying to destroy the palace. Eventually, Link fights against Odolwa within the palace and eventually beats him. To me, the story of the manga, together with my theory that Odolwa was already worshipped before the main story of Majora's Mask happened, makes more sense than what we have gotten from the game. In the game, Odolwa was a monster that was guarding one of the giants, and by beating him and getting his remains, which is his mask, we free the imprisoned giant. But nothing else was stated about Odolwa, just that he was a monster and that he was within the temple. And now, after talking about the manga, we finally enter the Woodfall Temple. Right when we are in the first room, we can hear the music playing. As the Woodfall Temple is heavily inspired by Native American culture, we can hear drums of war playing in the background and chanting in a high-pitched tone. There are strange looking creatures as statues in the walls that appears to look like to have Aztecian influences, but some of them look more demonic. Majora's Mask 3D changed a couple of statues, as we can now find the Deku King as statues in the walls instead of these demonic statues. My problem with showing the differences between the 3D version and the 64 version is that most original ideas of what once was are scrapped or changed, which is why I have a hard time showing all that in my videos, but I still do it anyway because I think it's relevant to what I'm showing. The 3D version has a lot of more symbols, which can be swirls, squares as platforms, and we can also see the moth or butterfly symbol better, which I will show later on in the video. We can find beetle symbols, flower symbols on the walls, red diamond gems above the doors, lots of plant-like symbols. It makes my head spin of how different the 3D version actually is, as it looks astonishingly better, but at the same time doesn't feel the same somehow for me. As the progress through the temple goes on and meet the main hall, we find a large platform resembling a flower in the middle of the room. This to me was most likely the place where all the sacrifices happened, as the flesh-eating plants around the platform can be used to throw the sacrifices in. The beehives that are scattered all around the temple are also an indication of Mayan influence. The Maya people used to keep bees as they used them to make honey, wax, and they used these things for their own traditions and practices. There are also fairies in the temple that each temple has in Majora's Mask, but I'll go into that in a different video, so I'll skip that right now. As we approach the end of the temple and enter the boss room, we see that the room has the shape of a flower, and when you look straight forward, a large insect-like creature can be seen on the wall. In my honest opinion, I never liked the room itself, as it all looks way too blurry on the N64 to make most out of the symbolism in the room, but when you look closely, there looks to be strange red-eye heads. It looks plain evil next to the large insect creature. But now that we have Majora's Mask 3D, we can actually see them better. The red-eyed statues, the moth in the middle, vines everywhere, and red with purple orbs in the floor. The first thing I want to look at are the statues, as they're one of the strangest I've ever seen in any Zelda game, and they appear to be looking like flies sitting. Flies are creatures that aren't really depicted in Mayan Aztec religion, but mostly these symbolize death, decay, bad omen, and so on. I'm still not very certain if they are depicted as flies, but the major moth in the middle, which happens to be an insect as well, is something we see many times throughout the temple, and is also referenced in the manga. However, I'm not so certain if this is in fact a moth, because it could also be a butterfly. Both are winged insects that shows the perspective of the Mayan belief of the early stages of civilization, as they compared it to us, humans. It had 4 stages: the egg, the caterpillar, the pupa, and at last the butterfly. Even though the game has 3 days before the end of the world happens, the 4th day is the true ending of the game, where Link is finally set free as a spirit. And before we end this temple, we of course have to fight the warrior, the boss of the temple, Odolwa himself. The guardian of the temple, the deity that was feared by the Deku, the one that they sacrificed for in order to keep the warrior spirit happy. And when he shows up, the drums start playing faster, the boss music starts, and here we fight against this powerful warrior. When looking at his design, we notice how he has these colors around him, the same as the Deku Palace, and in the manga he also has a couple of swirls around him, which is kinda interesting as well. The shield he has looks like a kite shield but slightly changed. Aztec warriors did not have any diamond-shaped shields, but circle-ish, so I think this was totally made up for the boss itself. The mask that Odolwa wears looks to be created by wood. However, the Aztecs did not only use wood for their masks, as gold and obsidian was also used in order to make them. These masks used to be called death masks, but they were also used to do ceremonial dances or rituals. It's even implied in Odolwa's name, as in Japanese, Odolwa, which could have been the inspiration for the name of this boss, which means I'll dance, and he says things in Mayan once he uses certain attacks that I have a hard time pronouncing, so I'll just show you guys so you can read it yourself. He also seemed to wear blue ornaments that look a bit like gems or sapphire, but to me they look more like blue obsidian ornaments. Obsidian was a material that was very important to the Mayas and was used to create a lot of ornaments, knives or other items, and was also used to trade with other peoples. I would say that Odolwa is using these ornaments for healing properties, and it's also a way for him to communicate with the insects, so that he can summon them and order them to attack Link during the fight. Now, the only thing I do not like with Odolwa is his sword. It is clear that this sword is made out of iron, and it doesn't make sense when it comes down to his inspiration, so this is clearly made up. The Mayans and Aztecs had a different weapon, which was more of a wooden club, or even a club made out of obsidian, and it was called, and here goes the pronunciation, Makwawitl. I learned this by playing medieval Total War a long time ago. The boss battle itself isn't all that difficult, with the 3D version being even easier, but the atmosphere and the way how this fight goes makes it so good. To me, it's better to drag this battle as long as you can to make it extra good that way. But after all the fighting, Link will be the one that ends the life of Odolwa and turn him into a mask. After beating the boss, the swamp slowly returns to normal and Link manages to save the princess and rescue the foolish monkey before being sacrificed by the Deku King. I always liked Woodfall Temple for what it was, and it was luckily not a pain in the woods. It wasn't as annoying as the second temple that we will be talking about in the next video. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.